This week, Glittergirl looked out and cringed when she caught an awkward moment. How could a scrapbooker make a start at documenting the moments of life that aren't particularly perfect at the time, but years later grow to be humorous or even endearing? Glittergirl, can you help tell those teenage tales?
Of course I can. Today I'm taking inspiration from one specific part of the mood board for this month, and that's an image that has a stack of picnic baskets or lunch tins on a weathered wood grain background. Now, I didn't have exactly those same colors and tones. I'm just being a little bit inspired, taking a little bit of inspiration from that and working with what I had to hand. So I'm going to use this background here with the gray and sort of a weathered background behind the Valentine print. That's from Alice and Craft Designs in the Recorded Collection. And then I'm going to use some pinks and also throw in some yellow to work on top of that so that I have these brighter colors in the foreground and the weathered look in the background. But let's have a little look at the story for today's page. And what I really wanted to focus on in this Moments Week was to tell a story that is slightly embarrassing, a little bit of a cringe-worthy teenage memory, an awkward teenage story. And I just have one photo that's not from exactly the right moment, but it's close enough that it'll work. And I want to tell the story of how one year and somehow my dog managed to send me a Valentine at school. And I promise this will make a little bit more sense as it all comes together, but it is definitely an awkward teenage story, but definitely something that I would like to get in my album because looking back on it is far funnier than when it happened in actual time. So I have some 3x4 cards, also from Alice and Craft in the Sprinkled with Love collection. I'm going to start with that to map my photo using this one up here where I can just use that little bit around the edge so that I have a little bit of contrast. And it's also going to make that wallet-sized photo be just a little bit bigger on the page, give it a little bit more weight because I really just have that one teeny tiny photo. And that's pretty small on a 12x12, but it is mostly a story about words that I want to write down. So I think it will all still work out. So that can go on here. And then I want to create a block that's going to go across the page that's going to be the right size for me to get this story written down. So I like the idea of taking a horizontal strip here. Just use this to see how much I want to trim here. And those lunch pails gave me the idea to run with a horizontal composition here because how they're stacked, you just see these horizontal rectangles of that bright color. And that's what I wanted to recreate in a very loose interpretation. No actual lunch pails going onto the layout, I promise. Now, add a little bit of black ink to this to give it a defined edge, but then I'm also going to use that yellow to give it a little bit more contrast on the gray background. Now that's different than the mood board picture, and that's absolutely okay. I just wanted it to help me get started with a little something, and then I kind of put it mostly out of my mind while I put the page together. This yellow then is going to give me something that connects all of that color that's in the background paper. So that I have the pink from the hearts in that pattern, but also a little bit of the yellow from the arrows. And just popping that there, I think that actually works better without a black inked edge. I do need to take the bottom strip off here. And then I want to make sure that I prioritize getting the story down on the paper so that I don't run out of room. Now, I know I'm going to tuck some other things behind this, so my adhesive is going to go here in the middle. And this pattern paper makes it pretty easy to line things up, so I should get it relatively straight across the page. And I think this needs something a little heavier behind it. I'm liking that the size of that mat makes it a bit bigger on the page, but now it's very light, and I'd like to bring in something that's going to give it that little bit of a darker frame and ground it. So I have some of that black and white heart print from Crepe Paper Love Notes that I used last week. So I think here you won't really see on this mat that it's a heart print, but you'll just see that kind of softer black edge, rather than using something that's really harsh, like a really intense black cardstock, just a bit softer. And let's see, I'm trying to think if I'm going to keep this straight or angle it a little bit, but I think it's going to work out better if I do it straight and then put my angles in with the smaller layers. Okay, I want to make sure that I get that story down before I add any embellishment this time. So I'm stopping even earlier than normal because the story is the motivation for the page. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in here so that I can see how much room it takes up before I do anything else. I still have plenty of this pink pattern paper, so I'm writing onto the page, but I do know that if it all goes horribly wrong, I can start again without any problem. It turned out that writing that story took a little bit more space than what I had allocated in that box. So I finished the story on a journaling card cut from that same sheet as before. And now I have a little bit of a corner shape to my composition. So that's going to give me a spot to put a title here, and then to place embellishment up here at the top corner and down here at the bottom corner. And it should all flow really well, even though I'm changing my mind from that original plan I had to keep everything on the horizontal. I want to add a little bit more weight to this, so just adding some pink pattern paper behind that. This is the B side of the Crepe Paper Love Notes Love Mix pattern paper, which has all the pink and aqua cassette tapes on the other side. And this will just give me that corner piece here and should be easy to read and realize that you read this and then follow down into the corner. I have this nice open space to put the title and have a natural frame to that, but I'm just looking at what I want to include. So I have these pink stickers from October Afternoon Daily Flash that I've been using, and they're a really great pink for all the different pink papers from different collections that are there. And then I wanted to mix in this newer font, which is a thicker font from American Crafts in the Amy Tangerine collection, in a nice gray. But if I put that gray straight onto this gray pattern paper, I don't think it's going to be very easy to read. So I'm just going to add a little bit of vellum behind there and spell that word of the title out on top of the vellum, and I think that should make it all a bit more legible. Here's one little hint for awkward teenage moments or whatever awkward moments you might want to put in your album. I tend to make sure that the title doesn't give all the awkwardness away. So maybe between the picture and the title, when you flip through my album, you might think, that's a little bit of an odd combination and maybe I need to read the story. But the truth is, I don't want anybody to figure out all the details of the story unless they take the time to read all the words that are there. So instead of having a title like the year my dog sent me a Valentine, I've gone with The Unexpected Valentine, and you have to read the journaling to figure out that my mystery Valentine at school was sent by my dog. So that's one way that I tend to work with the journaling so that it doesn't scream all its awkwardness, and yet if you pay attention to the small details of the page, all the awkwardness is really there and on show. So next step is my embellishment, and I've picked up a bunch of different pieces to use that are die cuts and stickers in yellow, pink, and a little bit of gray. These are from 2 different places. Some of them are from this ephemera pack from the Oh Darling collection by Create Paper, which has paper die cuts, but also some gemstones, some little epoxy, plastic bows, and different bits and pieces like that, but lots and lots of die cuts. And then the stickers are from this Dear Lizzie sticker book, and I've just punched those out so that I can move them around on the page. So that gives me plenty of embellishment in the right colors for everything here, so I don't need to bring in any extra color at this point. And I think I'll start with the yellow because I have these 3 yellow pieces, and this can help me allocate where things are going to go. So I can look and see if certain pieces are going to fit anywhere, and this one's going to be too big to go in this top corner, so maybe it's going to be best placed in that bottom corner. These 2 are both solid yellow, so better to separate those as much as possible so that they have that framing effect. So I have one this side of the embellishment, one that side of the embellishment, so maybe this one can go right here, and that can bring me to placing this one somewhere in the middle. I'm just looking at where the best place to do the embellishment in the middle might be, and I think it's actually going to be right underneath this little spot here. And then I can bring in the pink as well. So I have this sticker in essentially the same format. This one has little stripes and this one has polka dots, but again, I'd like to separate those out. So that one's going to go down to the other edge of the page. I have this one larger piece, which I think would be best placed with the title. And I have this one, which says hi, but the real reason I've pulled it out is because it has the 2 shades of pink, and I'd like to layer things on top of where it says hi so that I have a little detailed embellishment. And maybe that will fit right up here. It's going to be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but I think it could be just the right bit to add some nice embellishment up there at the top of the page, which means my one last little bits, my last few things of randomness need to be separated. This section needs something to give it a little bit more attention, so I'll bring that one down there first. At first I was thinking the butterfly, but then I thought that might be an interesting piece to keep up here and stack into that embellishment, so I'll leave that up here for now. And then I have 2 left over that I can bring in maybe somewhere in the middle, and nothing's stuck down, so I don't need to worry too much, but this gives me an idea of where everything's going to go. Starting my embellishment in the top left corner, I'm just layering the stickers behind different layers of the paper so that you get the layering effect. And I thought about adding the date into that top corner, but it didn't fit perfectly well, so I'll save that for somewhere later. The chipboard piece there with the heart is one that I've just added from the Create Paper Love Notes 12 by 12 chipboard sheet. And then these enamel dots are from Dear Lizzie Daydreamer. The tiny enamel dots in this set are really, really tiny, so they're a nice little finishing touch if you like those really small details. And that heart die cut there that I've just put by the title is layered, and it comes that way. It's already several different pieces stapled together that come that way in the die cut sheet, so you can just tuck in different elements of the page. So I tuck that heart so that the title letters go in between, and then this was a better spot for me to add the date, so that's gone straight underneath the title. Then repeating that same sort of layering down there at the bottom, but I wanted to bring that embellishment right down to the bottom of the page so that it extends everything. That way I've lengthened the design down to the bottom of the page, and by the time I've added a little bit to the top of the page, it will truly go corner to corner on the diagonal, which helps the composition all feel like it's in the right place. Then I wanted to add a tiny little bit of embellishment to the middle of the journaling, because there is kind of a paragraph change from the first section of the journaling on the pink to the smaller corner piece. So with a little bit of trial and error, I found a mix from the Love Notes stickers and the chipboard hearts to bring that all together. But then I realized there's a little bit more red showing up now that I hadn't originally planned on, because there's red in that heart up at the top left, and then there's red in the middle now. So I found one more chipboard piece with a red heart to bring down to the bottom of the page, and I've repeated that idea of 3 of the super tiny enamel dots in each of those 3 spots of embellishment. Then I wanted to bring in a little bit more of the darker color, but I didn't want it to be really overwhelming. So I keep 2 black stamp or ink pads on the go. I have one that's really, really juicy and the black ink comes out black, black, black. And then I have one that I don't re-ink nearly as often and it comes out a bit softer. So I'm using the softer one here. It's the same one that I use to do the edges of, to ink the edges of my papers. And I used 2 different stamp sets, the Nailed It stamp set from 2B's and then the new American Crafts Amy Tangerine stamp set from her new collection +1. And just that way I have that little bit of darker color in all those areas of embellishment, and it brings together that original color scheme. So with all that embellishment in place, I just have one little finishing touch, and that's that I wanted to add a little bit of something shiny. So I have shaken up my Tinsel Color Shine, which is a silvery mist, and I don't want this to be too obvious, but I just want a little bit of sparkle in the detail around the top and bottom corner. So I'll let that dry, and that's where I'm going to call this one finished. I hope this is a little bit of help for how those stories that are awkwardly and cringe-worthily imprinted on our brains can actually turn out looking pretty cute and pretty when we get them on paper. So I hope there's some little story that you might be able to document that seems a lot better now looking back on it than when it happened in real time, and enjoy telling a story that's a little bit of an awkward but funny and sweet moment. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Join us next week for the continuing adventures of Glitter Girl and the ongoing mystery of the scrapbooker behind the mask at 2psinAbucket.com.